All right, I think we're live. Welcome everyone to the Matt Maran Motoring live stream here on the Matt Maran Motoring YouTube channel. Hope you're all having a great Sunday here. Thanks so much for stopping by and hanging out. So, like all the other usual live streams, we're going to go for about 2 hours or so. We give priority answering to anyone who does a super chat or a super thanks, as well as anyone who's a member there with the green usernames. They always get that priority answering. If you'd also like that priority answering, you can always join and become a member with a link in the description. And so, see, we have already a lot of generosity here. Thank you so much to Brian Harrington and Grand Admiral Thrawn for gifting memberships. Really appreciate that. And see if we have any memberships here for Danny. I think the YouTube algorithm is still being unkind to Danny here, but we'll keep our fingers crossed. But I'll keep an eye out for Danny's comments again, the honorary member here. And thank you both so much. And Babs, thank you so much for the first super chat of the night. They're asking, hi, Matt, Jeep Wagoneer S Drive event soon. It is happening soon. It's been kind of an interesting story about that one. I don't think I'm at liberty to talk about it just yet, but I will be sharing about the Wagoneer S Drive relatively soon here. So stay tuned. But yes, it is soon, and I guess I can say it will be this month. So gives you a rough frame of reference there, but there will be Wagoneer S content pretty soon. So stay tuned for that. I'm glad you're excited about it as well, because that's a vehicle I'm really not sure, how many people are going to watch that one. So I actually really appreciate the interest, and gives me a little bit of faith that trip hopefully won't be a complete waste of time from a content standpoint. I'm excited for it. I mean, it's going to be, I think they said, still the fastest Jeep ever, right? But we will see if viewers care, because with electric stuff, usually it's an uphill battle. So, all right. And but getting into the other member questions here. And thank you so much once again, Babs. Harsha says, the new Model Y looks like a Chinese EV from the front and looks really weird from the back. The light bar for me doesn't fit with the design. The interior is a lot better though. Yeah, I don't love the design either. To me, it just looks like they try to rip off Cybertruck in the front, which, I don't think is the best move considering public sentiment for that vehicle right now. Obviously, it's more toned down and it's not, an obnoxious shape. So, I don't think it's clearly, I'd rather have a Model Y than a Cybertruck if I had to pick between one or the other. But I'm curious what some of you others think out there about the new Model Y here. But light bar for me, I have to see it in person because I can't tell from the pictures if it is an actual physical bar that actually is illuminated, or it looks like it almost is like a drop down light. Again, I haven't looked up close, or seen any other videos to investigate, but it almost looks like it's like a halo kind of effect just coming from beneath a little lip there or something. I'm not sure, but yeah, interior is, where the main improvements are. And obviously, styling was still fine. It was still, I think, the best-selling vehicle in the world last year. So, did they need to mess the styling? Probably not. Will it hurt them? I don't think the styling will hurt. Probably, in my opinion, I think it will probably motivate a few people to, make those changes again, especially for that new interior in particular. And Wheatman says, good evening, Matt and all car enthusiasts. Hope your weekend has been good. I appreciate that. Hope yours has been good too. And Brian, thanks for stopping by as well. Kevin, and let me see. So Kevin says, good evening. I did my 4th news interview at Citrus Connection, Bus Turn 1, Lakeland, Florida. I will be on WTSP Channel 10 News. This year is my 21st year working there. That's awesome. Well, congrats on the seniority and all the years of hard work. That's awesome. And let me see. Anthony says, hey, everyone, I hope you all had a great weekend. Mine was until the rear differential basically imploded on my 2020 CX-5. Ridiculous that a car less than 5 years old and only 88,000 miles. How does this happen? That is strange. I'm curious for more info. Did you buy it new, or is it maybe used and someone, messed with it before you got it or something? Cause yeah, that's not great. Sorry, I got a cat hair in my mouth. I know my sister, her CX-5 had a weird issue where the one headlight, the motor, the self-leveling motor failed, and it was making a buzzing sound. And they said that apparently there's no fix for it. You have to replace the entire headlight assembly. And that was going to be, I don't know, a couple grand, but I guess they did buy the extended warranty, so that was covered, but otherwise it would have not been covered because she was just past her bumper to bumper warranty. And I'm like, why are headlights going bad on a CX5 like so much so they need $1,000 or $2,000 replacement? I hope that's a fluke, but to me that sounds like a warranty, like TSB, like we screwed up thing from Mazda. They should not have headlights failing at that early of an age either. So that's interesting. Now you have another weird thing that shouldn't be happening at that age for a CX5. So I always like Mazdas typically have pretty good reliability, but then every once in a while I do see that they're not ranked as high as I would expect them to be ranked. And I always kind of wonder what that mismatch is. But maybe there are some not so great CX5s out there. I mean, a lot of my neighbors have them as well. They have had no issues with theirs that I know of, but seems like there might be a few bad apples out there. That's crazy. I hope I guess that's beyond your powertrain warranty. I hope that Mazda maybe steps up, because there shouldn't, unless there was a maintenance that you missed or some other obvious sign of mistreatment by either you or a prior owner. I don't know why that would happen. That really sucks. I'm sorry to hear that, Anthony, and I hope that Mazda takes care of you, or maybe you got an extended warranty. I don't know, but man, yeah, that is not fun. And if I keep hearing iffy stories about CX5s, I'm going to stop recommending them, because they always seemed, again, pretty solid to me, but that is not something you hear about in basically anything. Even like crappy cars with all-wheel drive, like that are, I'm expecting them to like go wrong. Usually will at least go beyond 88,000 miles before any kind of major failure like that. That is wild. So yeah, sorry to hear that, Anthony. That really sucks. Hope it gets fixed well and doesn't cost you anything, hopefully. And we see Brian says, liked Matt's picture for his Friday news segment. The frustration looked palpable. It really is. I mean, because, I won't go into a whole tangent about Subaru, but they can be better. They can do better. And I will admit, I did have a little bit of ignorance on my part, because I did not know that in Japan, the WRX is CVT only. So I guess for Japanese buyers, and that car is for the Japanese market, like that was all they were expecting. They were never expecting a manual. There's no manual VBWRXs, over there, which is also kind of insane to me. I don't know why they made that switch and people are cool with it over there. Especially considering, again, everything else that it competes against essentially is manual, and oftentimes manual only, really. So yeah, that is a weird move by Subaru, and I don't know. It's kind of a bummer, even if it is the norm for Japan. I mean, I'm guessing maybe if they did bring it here to the States, we'd get it with a manual, just because our manual take rate is so high for WRXs, but still, yeah, it just seems definitely strange. I see Brian also says he had a 2004 Mazda 6. In less than 5 years, it was plagued by electrical gremlins. Man, well, I know my sister's CX5, she is going to keep it a little while longer, but since my brother-in-law works at a Toyota dealer, he's like, yeah, I want to get you into a RAV4 or something like that. And she may swap into that here, sometime relatively soon. But I don't know. I guess Mazda is not quite as solid as I, previously thought they were. I mean, at least as far as press cars goes, they haven't had any glitches like I sometimes have in other vehicles. So they've been always good for me, for brand new ones at least, which isn't saying much. But again, some other companies even struggle with that. So crazy. But I appreciate all the info. That's great to know and hear. And Grand Admiral Thrawn says, I probably can't drive a stick anymore because of my knees, and I still feel that frustration. That sucks. And that's part of why, I wish that, all car companies gave people the choice. I don't think there's any harm in giving people the choice, forcing people into one transmission or the other. Obviously, I mean, again, if the numbers don't make sense to offer a manual, I can't blame them for not offering that. But for the manual transmission cars out there, I think they should offer all of them with an automatic, just because, yeah, there's a lot of people that do have injuries, that have chronic pain. There's an enormous amount of people that have a lot of these kinds of issues that still like cars and would like to probably have, some of these sporty things, but, they can't have an SI, they can't have a Civic Type R. They couldn't have a GR Corolla until this year. And that's one of the reasons why I love that Toyota, offers that automatic choice now. Subaru does, even though, again, it's a CVT, at least there's an option there. And so just I'm all about options, giving people choices. So that's a shame. Sorry about that, Grant. That's definitely got to be tough. I couldn't imagine if if I wasn't able to drive manual anymore, I'd really miss it. And Anthony says he also can't stand the electronics on the CX-5, but love the way it drives. But this is ridiculous. That's a shame. Again, hope it gets worked out. Brian says twin clutch gearbox or traditional automatic for me here in Nebraska. No curves to speak of. Yeah. Well, I mean, I think manual's fun in a straight line too, even if you're just, it's really, I think if you're sitting in a lot of traffic or again, you have injuries or other things like that where I, totally understand having an automatic. Like if I lived in LA, the crazy traffic there, like I'd have an automatic for sure, I think, unless it was a toy car for, weekend canyon runs and nothing else. But if you're commuting in LA, like why would you have a manual? I mean, I commend the people that do, I respect them for it. But, I don't know if I'd want to, deal with that every day personally. And Danny says, hello, Matt and everyone. Hope everyone's doing well. My cool spot of the week was a black E46 M3 convertible stick shift. Nice. That is a rare beast for sure. That's awesome. A lot of people back then were hyped about, that I think it was single clutch automatic transmission in those early days of the what do they call that? Not what did BMW call their thing? SMG. That's what it was. Yeah, the SMG when that first came out. And Vishal says, how's it going, Matt? We got some light snow here in North Carolina on Friday after 3 years. As someone who lived in Ohio previously, was exciting to see snow again. I bet. Yeah, it's always, I love snow. I really do love having all 4 seasons. Danny says his Chevy Bolt's closing in on 70,000 miles. That's great to hear. Hope it continues to do well. Thanks for stopping by, Jordan. I enjoyed the weekly update. Yeah, the weekly update. That is the best viewed weekly update I've done in probably years, honestly. And I'm very excited to see that. And also those little clips. I'm very curious what you guys thought about those little clips. I got one negative comment that said that they watched the weekly update, but then they were getting a bunch of the little clips suggested in their recommendations, and that kind of annoyed them, which I could totally understand. Those clips were definitely supposed to only be, or they should have been pushed to subscribers at all. I clicked the box so that it didn't notify subscribers and didn't show up in your sub feed at all. So, hopefully YouTube would figure out that means don't show it to subscribers or even suggest it to subscribers. But maybe some people who watch that stuff, it's still pushing them. So I don't know. I'm curious if that annoyed any of you. So I'll check the comments here in a few minutes and see if any of you, had your recommendations kind of screwed up as a result of that. And I will also add, like there was 3 car shows this week with Detroit, CES, and Tokyo Auto Salon. So I think I uploaded 10 clips from the weekly update, which on its own was super long. It will not be that many clips usually in a regular week. Whenever there's any other week, I mean, the auto show weeks, might be a lot, but for a lot of the others, I'm probably going to do half that, if that. I'm just going to really post clips of the more notable ones that I think have a decent chance of widespread appeal. And so hopefully, even if it does, show up in your recommendations, hopefully there's less of those videos here, for most weeks going forward. But I think that little experiment so far seems to have worked out pretty well. Some of them haven't gotten, more than a few hundred views, but some of them have gotten, over 1,000. And to me, that was kind of like is this worthwhile to do? And so I think it seems like for now, those are something that I'm happy I tried it, and I think I will continue that. Again, unless everyone absolutely hates it or something. But curious to hear your guys' thoughts on that. But Car says, good evening, everyone. My setting of the week was a current gen Z. It looked pretty cool in black diamond paint. Yeah, and I'm thinking we're going to start to see more Zs because all these sales numbers for the whole year of 2024 are now coming through, and Z actually outsold Supra last year. Now, obviously, there's more Supras on the road over the past 5 years, combined versus the Z, but they're starting to pick up some momentum finally with sales. So I'm expecting all of us to hopefully see some more Zs, relatively soon, or, if you live in a snowy place, obviously not till the summer, but hopefully Nissan starts to move more of those, because otherwise it seems like it's a complete and utter failure if they don't. And Kyle, thanks for stopping by as well. And Brian says no cool car spots for me this week. And we're sorry, I just reloaded the comments here. And yeah, he said, where'd it go? All right, yeah, too cold. It's gotcha. Yeah, too cold, and so yeah, same here. Although I was actually surprised, my spot of the week was that I saw an Audi R8 V10 driving on the salt-caked roads of Pittsburgh here yesterday, and I was like, all right, like kudos to that guy or girl for doing that. I'm like, that's awesome, and I have so much respect. I mean, I don't love the idea of cars getting ruined by salt, but just people just dailying awesome cars is always something I love to see and respect. So that was my fun spot of the week. And Shane, also, sorry I missed it. Thank you so much for gifting 5 memberships. I really appreciate that. Yeah, just happy to see. Looks like some new faces and some familiar ones as well. So that's awesome. Thanks so much. I really appreciate the generosity. And let me see, getting into the other questions here. Chad, thanks for stopping by. Kyle says, my local dealer has a 2023 Toyota Camry TRD for 35 grand with 25,000 miles. Such a nice looking car. Yeah, and it's crazy how those are holding their value. I mean, because that car, what were they new? Like 40, maybe not even. I mean, a lot of people, especially again enthusiasts that missed that V6, I think those Camry TRDs are going to be pretty rock solid, which is, great news for, I think Raphael has one if he's in here tonight, and yeah, I know there's a few others. There he is. Yeah, Raphael, I see he said hello. I think he's got one still, and yeah, super good investment, or at least a car you can basically drive for free, as far as depreciation goes. And Grant says he didn't see any cool cars either. And I see everyone else saying hello. Will from San Diego, keep an eye out, Will. I will be doing a couple drives this month, and there will be some stuff in San Diego. So if you see some cool new stuff that you haven't, that is just coming out, definitely say hello, do a wave or whatever. It may just be me cruising around here relatively soon. Antonio says, hey Matt, how's the year going? Live from Southern California. It's been crazy here. I bet. I'm sorry to hear that. Yeah, I'm sure you're having a rough time, Antonio. Thanks for stopping by, and hopefully this live stream's a nice little bit of distraction for you. But I'm doing good, especially compared to everyone in Southern California. I cannot complain. Hope you're doing okay. I know a lot of people are losing power, and obviously the smoke and all that, even if the fire is not at your back door. But I know even one of my other buddies, Rev Match TV, he was like taking a picture, I think last night, and like the fire is literally over the other side of the hill from his house. And it's like, he's really hoping it gets contained. And it's like, I cannot imagine the anxiety that would create. Oh man, I feel so bad. So much devastation. It's nuts. And yeah, I hope that it gets put out soon. And I can't even put it into words. It's been so crazy just seeing all the footage this week and all the pictures and everything. And yeah, I hope this ends soon. I feel like I don't in the past with the California wildfires, I know a lot of them have burned for a while on a minor scale, even if they haven't been like super problematic. But this one I feel like it's still is like really strong, and I don't know when it's gonna slow down, but I hope they can get it under control here soon. It's just, man, the devastation. It's so sad because I love California, especially LA, and just like seeing the Malibu coast, like all those houses just being eviscerated, and being like you can see straight into the water now. Like it's so sad. So much beautiful history too. I'm a big history nerd, and like all the historical homes that are that were there, and all the celebrity homes that had so much history and just so much stuff, and of course just regular people that are just trying to get by, have enough setbacks and problems in the world to deal with, and then you just lose everything. I can't believe it. It's just nuts. So Best of luck to you, Antonio. Hope you're doing okay though, and that goes for everyone else in Southern California. My heart goes out to all of you. Um, and let me see here. Double Strike says, "Hi again, Matt. Good evening to you. Hope you're enjoying this weather. Cold enough to freeze your extremities." Yeah, it is cold. And yeah, I've been out in the cold a little bit more than usual here, just because we've been getting all these repeated like snowfalls. I've been continually, plowing, with my little electric snow blower, and they've been also. I've have a Rivian this week, first Rivian I've ever had for a press car, and it's a thirsty one when it comes to electricity. So I've been at the fast chargers twice with that thing, and the one time I was standing out in the cold talking to another Rivian owner, and standing around at a charging station for 20 minutes chatting with someone in the freezing cold, not great whenever we're talking about 20 degrees or whatever, but it was really great talking still nonetheless. But yeah, I'm trying to stay in as much as I can here. Hope you're doing okay too, Double Strike. And Harsha says, one of my friends on Friday showed me his 55 Packard convertible that his grandfather bought brand new in 1955. Unfortunately, he's selling it as finding parts is extremely difficult now. Yeah, Packards are tough. I don't have a lot of love for them for that main reason. I mean, they're really cool. I love anything from the 50s is pretty cool. But the Packards, yeah, there's just like very little support these days for them. I kind of had hoped the 3D printing scene would kind of provide a lot of needed parts for these things. But even with it being really easy maybe to make parts now, it's just, again, if there's just a handful of old guys essentially that care about those things, how many of them are going to be 3D printing? And even if they do, is it worth the trouble for 5 parts you got to make or something? I don't know. It's sad. I see a decent amount of Packards around here in Pittsburgh too, rusting away in people's driveways and things like that. They're cool cars for sure. And I can't imagine having a car since 1955, the connection you must have. It's got to be sad to let it go. It's a shame. But yeah, I can totally understand the lack of parts thing is getting harder and harder, I think, by the day. Dylan says, hello, cool spot of the week, and Aston Martin DBX, first one I've seen in person. Nice. Yeah, those are so fun. There's actually one at the one local used car dealership that's near my house, and I see it's a bright, like canary yellow one that's been sitting out in the snow because this dealership just leaves all their crap like out and exposed to the elements, which drives me crazy. But DBX is great. I drove one obviously a few months ago and had a blast with it. And let me see. I see everyone excited about the memberships. And Decepticon, thanks for stopping by. I always appreciate the comments, Stinger. And Jason says, would you go with a loaded out Grand Cherokee or a base model Wagoneer? I mean, I guess it depends on what you need. If you don't need the exercise, I mean, Wagoneer is big, and if you don't want to feel like you're driving a school bus every day, Grand Cherokee is going to be the easier one to live with, easier one to park. So if you don't need a third row, or you can live with a smaller third row of the Grand Cherokee L, I'd go Grand Cherokee. I honestly don't love either choice personally, but if I had to choose between one or the other, again, the smaller the vehicle, the better generally, as far as my tolerance for it, as far as a daily livability standpoint. So Grand Cherokee would probably be the way I would go. But I also feel like Grand Cherokees loaded are not a good value. They're so expensive. And so if we're talking from a value standpoint, I think you probably get, obviously you get more vehicle for your money if they're the same price for a base Wagoneer versus loaded Grand Cherokee. I mean, loaded Grand Cherokee, I guess if like a passenger's display excites you, if a slightly better stereo, is nice. I mean, there's nicer trim and stuff, but to me, they're so expensive. You look at everything else that competes against Grand Cherokee loaded, and they're like 10, 15 grand less. And maybe Grand Cherokee deals are insane right now, and maybe you can get it, 10 or 15 grand off. I don't know, but I don't have a lot of love for Grand Cherokee. Wagoneer is fine. But I think even there, like, all the competitors, for the most part, I mean, I think, like, I don't love Sequoia either. But I think for me, I'd just go Tahoe or Expedition, if I'm going to go for something that big anyway. But yes, I'm no help for you, Jason. I apologize. But hopefully that gives you a little bit of insight there. Value, I'd say Wagoneer. Livability, I'd say Grand Cherokee. So make of it what you will. And let me see here. Sorry, Jordan and Chad, Mr. Super Chats till now. Jordan, thank you for a super chat. He says 2016 Honda CRZ, 30,000 miles, 18 grand, one owner. Goodbye. I'd have to look at comps and see what the other CRZs that are out there, what they're going for. Obviously that's probably one of the lowest mileage ones in the country. But what's the second lowest mileage one going for? If it's not much less, then maybe the 18 grand's worth it. 18 sounds a little high for any CRZ for me though. That's just because there's limited appeal for those, that I feel like it's not really a seller's market really for those. So maybe there's some negotiation that could be done there if you are curious, to buy that vehicle. But for me, it's so hard for me to say because I don't keep tabs on the market of every, vehicle out there. So I would have to, load up Auto Trader, Auto Tempest, something like that, and pull up all the CRZs out there and see what the other ones are going for. But CRZs are cool though. I always thought they were awesome, even if they were a little underpowered. And Chad, thank you for a super chat as well. He says, average buyer, I want an affordable, reliable, comfortable car. Manufacturer, more screens and sensors, 90 grand. Right, I know. Well, I mean, and this was another takeaway observation from sales of 2024. I don't really talk about these in the weekly update, but they're really fascinating to me. So hopefully this doesn't bore too many of you. But cheap cars had a fantastic year in 2024. Like, I think Nissan Versa sales are up like 80%. Sentra sales are up like 155%. Jetta sales are up 75%. Civic is even, doing super well. I think they've crossed, the 200,000 car threshold, or I think they've beat out Corolla for the first time. Like tons of like those cheaper cars, they are still some of the top sellers, for the entire country. And they had a banner year, I think. And Mirage doesn't sell anything, but I think Mirage sales were up like 800% or something. I'm expecting TFI to suddenly appear and say something about Mirages, but yeah, it's kind of impressive. And I don't know if car companies are going to latch onto that or not, because those are not high profit vehicles. And we'll have to see how things go this year, how tariffs or lack thereof affect or don't affect the prices of things. As far as, is this something that car companies want to lean into more? I think a good starting point is decontenting the stuff that's out there, even if every car company doesn't rush to make a new economy car or something. Even if, we just get the return of the LX trims for all the Hondas, we get the return of, even an L trim for, like Camry, Corolla, all these have LE. What about, there used to be L trim, what's wrong with, doing that still, have it stripped down a little bit more, decontented it a little bit. I think there's room for that. I think, for people that are complaining about the price of eggs or the price of gas or whatever, you tell them you can save $500 even by having a non-keyless entry or something like that, decontent, those types of things. I think people would take that stuff. And also it's just, I think people are also figuring out, because myself and I think many others, and it's also just plainly obvious that a lot of these base models are so jam-packed. They all have adaptive cruise these days. They all have, pretty big screens for a base model. They have, a lot of creature comforts still, really nice interiors and everything these days, pretty much, so it's not like you're sitting in some, chintzy penalty box if you go for a cheap trim on a lot of these. So I think a lot of people are figuring out, like, sure, I used to go for, a limited RAV4, but you know what? Now the SE is so nice. I'll just go for that and, save myself some money, or spend the same money I used to spend on a limited 5 years ago. And now I'm still at that same price point, but they've gone on in pricing. And so everyone's like, well, I'm just going to, drop down a trim. I don't think there's anything wrong with that, because these trims, again, are so solid with what they offer in the lower trims these days. But yeah, affordable stuff. I think the message was very clearly sent in 2024. People still want affordable cars, and not even just crossovers. Like, a lot of these things I'm talking about are sedans, which, again, a lot of people already wrote off those segments, gave up on those segments. Ford gave up on that segment. Chevy, gave up on that segment, all these others. And the message is very clear that like these things are selling really well, and these few, remaining survivors like Versa and Mirage show like there is a lot of demand still for this stuff. Um, and I mean, another one like Chevy Trax, which I knew that was going to be a huge hit because Chevy Trax, what is it, $23,500 to start, including destination. And it has a huge trunk for something like that. It has a back seat that adults can sit in comfortably. And it's $23,500, and they sold 200,000 tracks last year. And I honestly am shocked that Chevy was actually able to keep up with that kind of volume demand, that they kind of were able to keep up, because usually other car companies, if they have that much demand, because I think the year before, tracks for the old track sold like maybe 100,000, so they like doubled it with the new one. And I just like, it's impressive they kept up with the demand, and two, that just like it resonated with people. And I mean, I don't know about you guys, but you look around, every time I'm out for a drive, I see at least one of the new tracks. Is everyone bought one around here, even with front wheel drive, which usually, this is Subaru country. But people are snatching up those tracks as like, they're going out of style. So it's, I'm really proud of consumers this year for sending the message like we don't want all this expensive crap. We want the cheap stuff. And I mean, this is what I'm trying to do also with like doing more of these used car reviews, because I think that market's going to continue to grow as everything continues to get more expensive, which I don't think that's going to improve this year. Maybe it will. I hope it does, but I'm not optimistic about that. And so I think that, I'm planning on doing, more used reviews again this year and really focusing on cheap stuff. I'll still take the occasional expensive car. Again, this Rivian I have right now is $100,000, but I don't love focusing on that stuff a lot. I will do it from time to time because I want to have something for everyone. But my passion has always been affordable stuff, and especially affordable, fun stuff. But, I feel like it's such an overlooked, everyone says, oh, well, look, the average transaction price is 50 grand. So let's just review all the $50,000 cars. And it's like, well, that's an average. And, that's, also accounting for the urban cowboys that spend 100 grand on trucks that never get dirty. But then you also have that average brought down by all these people buying Chevy Traxxas, for example. So, yeah, I really hope car companies pay attention to these sales numbers and say, look, Trax was a huge hit. Maverick is another one. I see another super chat. I'll get to Jordan here about the Maverick. Maverick was a huge hit, even though it is, again, they showed a refresh towards the end of the fall here. And, it's now a 3 or 4 year old design. Still record year for Maverick. Every year keeps improving and getting more and more sales. I think they sold over 125,000 Mavericks in 2024. So much of that. So, and still insane to me. No one has competed with Maverick outside of Santa Cruz. And it's just like everyone's leaving money on the table. And I hope that they see, Maverick is not running out of steam. Everyone wants cheap cars. Bring the cheap cars. Like, I don't know. We'll see what happens. It seems like a lot of these car companies are just hell bent on, making cars less and less accessible to people. But I really hope that this message is clear enough that people, car companies do that. So anyway, but Jordan, thank you for the super chat. He says, my mother-in-law, Chad's mom, received her 2025 Maverick in the driveway Thursday. It was stuck on a train for about a week. Well, at least it was only a week. That's actually pretty good for trains. I kind of learned a little bit about the whole logistical snafus that happened, especially with Ford, with our Mach-E, waiting for that because it was sitting in a parking lot at a train depot for like 3 weeks, just waiting for a truck to pick it up from there. So for us, they got off the train fast, but it was in the train yard for 3 weeks collecting dust, waiting for a truck to pick it up. So I'm glad it was actually a quick turnaround for you. You got a pretty good experience, at least as far as that transit component is concerned. So congrats, glad Ford's doing better, and hope your mother-in-law is enjoying her Maverick so far. That's awesome. And Hugo, thank you so much for being a member for 19 months. Glad to see you in here. Hope you're doing well, Hugo. He says, since Tim came back as CEO of Ram, I still have hopes for a Dakota. Bring it back. Yeah, I don't know what's going on with that. I don't think anyone's seen any spy stuff recently, but there was some smaller stuff spied. And, again, getting back to the affordable thing, there's that little Ram Rampage they sell in South America. I don't know if it would pass crash safety, standards here in the States, but it's kind of like Santa Cruz size, Maverick sized. it's done. It's there. So as long as it can pass, safety standards, just bring it here. And I hope Tim has the sense to just, even if it, don't call it the Dakota, you can still keep it as Rampage or whatever you want, but like, options. Just give people again options for this cheaper stuff. And I think they'll be pleasantly surprised, the amount of people that probably would go for it, even if it is, a compromised vehicle that's unibody and stuff. I know people would love also body on frame, actual, midsize from Ram. I don't know why they have, abandoned that segment for so long. It just seems completely backwards for a dedicated truck company now with Ram to not have a midsize truck. I hope he fixes that. But again, we're going into uncertain times. Yes, the next 4 years is going to be a free for all as far as, emissions. And, if they were designing just for the next 4 years, then sure, they could make, some body on frame thing, chuck a, gas, V8 engine in it or whatever they want and be fine. But again, it takes, 5 years or so to develop and, bring a car to market. So they got to think ahead to, what are people going to want in 2030? But it's kind of scary to develop an EV right now, seeing the way, EV demand is still growing, but, is not as hot as it once was. And so it's, I don't know how they're going to decide that or what they're going to do. And that's why I think just bringing Rampage from South America is just, a safe way to, fill a gap for the next 4 years, kind of be in a holding pattern, wait and see what happens in the world, after that, and kind of decide what you want to do at that point. But I think that'd be a good little, stopgap. We'll see what they do. But I'm right there with you. I love to see a new Dakota, and thanks for stopping by again, Hugo, and being a member for 19 months now too. And let me see. Back to the member questions. Don't want to get too far behind here, but I appreciate all the super chats as well. So let me see. Always trying to find my spot. I see Tyler's asking, trying to decide Camaro LT1 or Mustang GT. Camaro if you want the best handling, Mustang if you want a little bit of an easier daily, a little more comfy, a little bit better visibility. Both are great cars, but Camaro to me has always been the better handler. I like the motor in the Mustang better. It's a higher revving motor. If you like a bunch of torque down low, though, Camaro is the way to go there. They have their own perks. It just comes down to what you prioritize the most, Tyler. And I see Anthony says, bought it new and always maintained it for the Mazda. That's upsetting then, because there should be no reason for that to blow up at 88,000 miles. That's nuts. I hope they take care of you. Yeah. If they don't, let me know, because then that's going to really kind of weigh into, again, that's one anecdotal story, but, I've never heard of anyone's RAV4 blowing up at 88,000 miles or CRV or, anything else, honestly. That's nuts. So yeah, again, sorry to hear that, Anthony. And let me see. I'm just going to stick to member questions for now, so I don't get too far behind on those. Then I will go back and do some of the non-member questions a little bit later on here. But I see Kyle saying to call Mazda headquarters. Yeah, it never hurts to call. It never hurts to ask and try and, leave no stone unturned and see if someone can do something for you. Even making a stink on social media sometimes, if you want to post on like the Reddit, CX5 for Reddit or something, things like that. Jalopnik also likes to kind of run stories like that sometimes. So it doesn't even hurt to reach out to someone like that. It's not something I usually kind of cover. But if there was a widespread thing and this was, something that needed attention and there was more than, just, one or two, maybe you just got a lemon or a bad apple. Obviously you're beyond the lemon law period, but, but if it's something that is an actual error, then hopefully Mazda recognizes that and, can fix that, and give people extended warranties for that. Let me see. I see Chad says, okay, lemon laws in Florida, the manufacturer has to fix the issue under 100,000 miles. Interesting. That's cool. So yeah, doesn't hurt to do that either. Great recommendation there. Antonio says, even if a car only has 88,000 miles, the maintenance plays a huge part if a car is neglected, right? But it doesn't sound like that's the case there. So that's crazy. Kyle, thank you so much for gifting 5 memberships. I really appreciate the support every week. Happy to see a bunch of people able to get those memberships there. And yeah, thanks so much again, Kyle. And let me see here. So, where were we here? Yeah, I see a bunch of other people stopping by here too. Thanks for stopping by, everyone. And Wheatman says, Matt, your thoughts on the 35th anniversary Mazda MX-5 Miata? What is the process of getting on the wait list? I'm trying to remember what the 35th anniversary one is. Is that, if it's just like a paint color combo, there shouldn't be a ton of demand for it. If there is, certainly, I mean, the only thing you need to do is just, call up whatever dealers you're willing to, drive to and, get on a wait list. That's what I did with the Bullet. Before I got the VIP order offer from Ford, I just called a dealer that I had already been working with, Lebanon Ford in Ohio there. I was just filming some stuff there that prior summer. And, I was like, hey, if you guys won't do markup, I'll order it from you guys. And they're like, yep, no markup. And so, it's just one of those things. Make sure you don't pay a markup. And if a dealer tries to, sell you on that, or, says, oh, well, if you're excited about it, it's going to cost you, then be like, all right, bye. And, find a dealer that doesn't do that. That's the only thing I'll say is, with wait lists, sometimes they try and capitalize on that demand. So, yeah, I think that's probably the best course of action. Get on a wait list somewhere, just call around, find the best dealer that you can, and hopefully it works out. And good luck with the search, and hopefully you can get one pretty quickly if you decide to go that route. So that's awesome. And thanks for stopping by, Chadwick. And Harsha says, what would you rate all the cars you have owned over the year, or how would you rate all the cars you've owned over the years based on your enjoyment and ownership experience? So, I mean, I think the Bullet is definitely the top one. So that would be the top one. I think, thinking about all the other ones that I've had, I think the EcoBoost and the Mini have to be towards the bottom of the list just because those were the two that made me the most nervous as far as, are they going to blow up? Are they going to fail on me? The EcoBoost never let me down. It just had some weird, concerning issues. There was like random smoke that would come out of it. And I was like, what is this? Just weird quirks, that made me iffy about the EcoBoost, especially, once I had the mods on it and kind of had tuned it. So the warranty was probably, gone. I'm not the type of person that likes not having a warranty. It just, my risk tolerance doesn't do well with that. So, I think the Mini again was another one with the Mini. As a YouTuber, I played that completely wrong. I should have monetized every breakdown and just driven that car, for all it was worth, as far as, just every failure and, and just seen just how bad it could have gotten, because it makes for great, TV, or in this case, YouTube. So, but those, I mean, I love both of those cars still, even though they were problematic. But if we're talking about just, how good the ownership experience was overall, my enjoyment, got to be Bullet. And then I would say BRZ after that. And then I'd say probably Legacy GT, the first car I bought, the Spec B, that would be number 3. And then I'd say the GT that wasn't cursed would be number 4. I guess the GT that I, only have for like 12,000 miles and had, the 2 crazy accidents in, I guess that was probably the car I've had the most scary experiences in. So that's probably at the bottom, even though, again, I love that poor car, even though it just was just a cursed car. And it just wasn't the car's fault. Wasn't my fault. It just had bad luck. But I think that was another one that just, is and one that I don't want back. You know what I mean? But yeah, so I think those are definitely the easy top 4 there: Bullet, BRZ, Spec B, and non-problematic GT. And my first car also holds a dear spot in my heart. That 1997 Subaru Impreza Outback Sport wasn't a really fun car to drive. It was fine, but it was slow, and I had the automatic because it was just a hand-me-down. So that'd probably be number 5, but it, still kind of holds a special spot in my heart nonetheless. Great question. Thanks for asking, Harsha. And Wheatman, thank you so much for gifting 5 memberships. I really appreciate that as well. Thanks so much for all the generosity from everyone tonight. I really appreciate it. And so happy to see so many able to get those, especially I see Jonah, who has been in the live streams here a bunch. Happy to see he was able to get one. And that's what I like to see is whatever YouTube's algorithm, actually gives them the people who are participating in the live streams. I think that's definitely nicer versus usernames that get memberships and maybe they enjoy the other perks, but they don't ever hang out in the live or at least ask questions. So always happy to see actual live participants able to get this. So thanks so much, Wheatman, for the gifting. And let me see here. Where are we? I see Double Strike says, had a minor recall, so my loaner this week is a Macan in the color chalk. My daughter is pissed that it's light gray. She says no one buys gray chalk. That is true, actually. Very good point. that is a strange, I never thought of that. I just kind of was like, okay, it's called chalk. But yeah, I mean, I guess there's chalky stuff, and I think that stuff is usually gray when you think about, I don't know, like powdery substances or something. I don't know. But like, as far as your actual chalk, yeah, it's so funny, things that you just kind of like pass over and don't actually give a second thought to until someone points it out. I appreciate that little realization, Double Strike, and I hope the Macan treats you better than Nick Murray's Macan loaner. It seems like he always has such glitchy Macans. And Raphael says, as a 16-year-old, I had an auto Chevette for a year, all manuals after that until my late 40s. Never had a problem with rush hour. That's great. Some people, it's just they're built differently. They just have a different tolerance there. And kudos to you for doing that. I think a lot of people too, especially you had like a Chevette, a lot of people used to just drive manuals every day just because it was definitely the better, value from a purchase standpoint. You got better fuel economy, a lot of perks to manuals that have since evaporated with modern automatics in most cases. But it's cool you had a Chevette for your first car. That's funny. I've heard so many horror stories about those things. I'm curious if you had any bad experiences yourself, but that's funny. And let me see. Chad, thank you so much for a super chat. He says, Nissan should advertise no more CVT, back to cockroach reliability. No more need for a merger. Right. Well, and even like I see so many CVT comments and people that are still burned by that, even though the new Nissans, even the ones that do use a CVT, it's a new CVT. I think they, had that problematic one, and I think they got rid of it like by 2016 or something. At least in most of the stuff, maybe some of the things that hung on longer, like maybe Rogue Sport, that lasted maybe in there till the end. I don't know, but they learned their lesson with that. And I think if you look at more modern Nissans of the past like 5 years or so, maybe even a little further back, they should be better. But I don't know for sure, but I'm pretty certain it is a new CVT in there. But still, so many people are like, wow, stay away, it's a Nissan CVT. But you would think, I mean, maybe they didn't learn their lesson, but you would think it's a new CVT. They have incorporated the learning experiences of the last one to not repeat that. But it's burned a lot of people. I was even talking to my neighbor, and their corporation buys company cars, like large, groups of vehicles from a single manufacturer. And they used to have Nissans, and then the fleet got burned with CVT issues, and now they're switching to, I think, Subaru, for which is also wouldn't be the ship I would jump onto if you're jumping off the Nissan ship. I don't know, Subaru also using CVTs and also being known to not always be super reliable, but that's what they've switched to. But I mean, like, even companies that are buying a lot of cars also got burned, and also were like, we're done with dealing with these problematic Nissan CVTs. And even they don't have the information that, like, hey, maybe there's some new ones here, or they just don't have faith that the brand can do that well, even with the new version. They're washing their hands on Nissan, and it's a shame. And yeah, I don't know how you do that in a way, that isn't detrimental to the brand. Because if you do nationwide commercials saying, hey, we don't have crappy CVTs anymore, then a lot of people will be like, wait, what? You had crappy CVTs that aren't in the loop, that maybe didn't get burned by one, or haven't heard an experience of someone they know that's gotten burned by one. Then it's like, oh, wait, now I can't ever buy a used Nissan or whatever. And then it's, yeah, sure, maybe they buy new ones, but they don't buy the used ones. So it's just like you're in a catch-22 there, I think. And it's like, what do you do, But I think they have improved. Again, we will see. Time will tell, I guess. But I know a lot of people now, the problem is people are like, well, if Nissan's future is uncertain, why would I buy a Nissan? Because what if, their dealers go away and this merger doesn't happen? Then where am I going to get my car serviced? I mean, it's a Nissan. It's not like you can't take it to a regular service shop and have them do basically everything. But, just people don't like that uncertainty, and that's going to hurt them as well. And that's why I think, getting this merger inked and, finalized as fast as possible to give people that confidence, like, okay, they have Honda supporting them here. And hopefully that means, I can have confidence in buying a Nissan. But it doesn't seem like it's hurting Nissan sales that much. I know Kicks was another huge success story in addition to Versa. Kicks, this new generation is already selling super well. Even the old one was selling pretty well towards the end there, just because, again, people were like, I want a cheap car. And the old Kicks was there to be nice and dirt cheap. But another vehicle that, I'm glad to see is doing well finally. And again, Nissan certainly needs it. So I'm happy to see it for them in particular. But and Raphael, thank you also for a super chat. He says, I guess my wonder is why, reliable or not, Nissan is so determined to be the CVT company. That's a good question. I think they are slowly working themselves away from that. Murano, the new Murano is a prime example, has CVT, and now for the new version, 9-speed automatic, which ZF 9-speed is also, not an ideal transmission either. But, they knew people just, it doesn't even have to be an amazing transmission or even a good one. If it's just not a CVT, they're going to have, I think a positive effect there from a sales standpoint. So I think Murano to me was a recognition of those issues and that negative perception and changing that. And I think we will see, for some of these things, again, like Kicks, I don't think they're going to switch it from a CVT for that. Because again, it just helps fuel economy. It still really does. But for stuff like Murano, where you can, probably get away, of not having the best fuel economy, those are the opportunities for them to say, okay, let's put a 9-speed in. And I think that we will probably see that with a few others. Rogue could go, for next generation Rogue could maybe go to the 9-speed too. Because we'll see, but a lot of others in that segment, don't do CVT still. RAV4 still uses regular 8-speed automatic, and the non-hybrid ones and stuff. So, we'll see what happens. But yeah, I don't think they want to be the CVT company anymore, because they know that's not a good place for them to be, from just a reputation standpoint. And JJ, thank you so much for a super chat. He says, Matt, how do you really feel about Earth on the GX, Earth or Nori? Do you think the future GX will be the 4-cylinder iForce Max or the 6-cylinder hybrid for 26? So I don't remember exactly what the Earth color is. I love Nori Green Pearl though. I love that color. So that probably still is my favorite Lexus color. That and Copper Crest are my favorite Lexus colors right now. So I'd probably go Nori. Earth, I can't remember. I did have an incognito colored GX as a press vehicle here, and I'll be posting that video next month on that. But I love that color as well for GX, but I think Nori Green Pearl is a solid color for sure. As far as future GX, I haven't seen sales, but it seems like Land Cruiser might be hurting because of the 4-cylinder in it. And I think GX, at least from what I've seen, is more favorably viewed by buyers in general, but especially Toyota fans. So I think, especially with the way the next 4 years, again, not having any regulations at all, probably, I think GX is probably going to stick with that motor until, my guess would be 2029, maybe, if they fear some kind of, catch up on emissions standards and stuff like that, or if they, have to get back to actually caring about, emissions in 2029. then you could maybe see a switch then. But I think for the next 4 years, it's going to be burn, baby, burn for gas engines, especially, Toyota will be happy to jump on that bandwagon. They donated $1 million to Trump's inauguration. They are, I do not expect to see Toyota make too many gains in fuel efficiency in the next 4 years. There will be some, there's been speculation the RAV4 will probably go hybrid only like Camry did. And I think they will try and, do some more of those things. But for segments where, again, they might have a little bit of negative sentiment with Land Cruiser right now with the 4-cylinder and the fact there's no pressure anymore to worry about fuel economy, I think, GX is not going to change powertrains. Maybe they will offer a hybrid, but when you offer the hybrid, like we see with Land Cruiser that everyone's complaining about, the same thing that I complain about even with Sequoia, you got to have that battery pack. The way the engineers, I don't know why they can't find a different place for it, but it's like, well, we're just going to have this giant bump in the cargo area, and that just is not good for, vehicles where cargo space is king. And so I think for that reason alone, it will not be hybridized unless they come up with a new way to hybridize it that doesn't infringe on, the cargo space there. So yeah, I think don't expect GX to do any changes for the next 4 years, especially since it's so fresh. It literally came out last year, and it's a vehicle that'll probably be on the market for another 15 years after this year. So, I think don't expect anything new for GX. I haven't heard anything. I could be wrong, but I don't see any world where they would switch the engine, honestly. And I think if we're speculating about Toyota trucks, if anything's going to change, I think you could see Land Cruiser get the GX motor. If I were to be betting on anything as far as changes for those two vehicles, that I think it's going to be Land Cruiser getting stuff from GX, not the other way around. Because the GX stuff seems to be the stuff that's working, and the Land Cruiser stuff seems to be not so hot. So that would be the way that I would expect that to go. Is just get the Land Cruiser, the 6-cylinder there. And let me see. And thank you again, JJ, for the super chat. Jordan, thank you for a super chat as well. He says, are EVs used / bought with it or taught within driver's ed? Okay, I got you. So yeah, do they familiarize people with EVs and driver's ed? I don't know. I haven't seen any driver's ed cars that are EVs. Usually around here, they're all like Hyundai Elantras. But I don't know if maybe that's something you guys have seen anything out and about. There's lots of cheap stuff, and I could certainly imagine some of these driver's ed cars that maybe don't do more than 200 miles a day, could maybe, save some money there doing that. So maybe in certain states, especially states that have great incentives like Colorado, I'm sure Colorado probably has some, EV cars for that kind of stuff, but I haven't seen or heard of any in particular, but interesting question. Thanks for asking, Jordan. And Jorge, thank you so much for the super chat, the very generous super chat as well. He says, what do you want to see in an Integra Type S refresh? I don't know. I genuinely can't think of anything I would change for Integra Type S. Yeah, because it already has the touchscreen, that they're slowly fixing in the other Acuras. Yeah, I don't know. I don't. Yeah, there's nothing. There's nothing that I think that car needs fixed. I could, I think one thing that'd be nice to see is actual active exhaust. That's something that Honda has not partaken in. And I don't know why, because it's very popular with other brands. I know the Japanese in general just aren't super into that. But, I guess maybe that's it. I'd love to have a switch to say I want it loud or I want it quiet versus having it be RPM based or drive mode based. But that's really the only thing I can think of. Otherwise, it's still a fantastic car. I think, yeah, they only have heated seats, right? Maybe adding cold seats to the Integra would be a nice thing to further, separate. But I can't remember. Does it already have cold seats? I don't think it does. So if it doesn't, that would probably be the only other thing I'd say from a creature comfort standpoint. But driving wise, it's still, perfect. Styling's perfect. Interior is fine. Yeah, nothing else that I could say. I know a lot of people would love to see an automatic or either automatic or all-wheel drive. I don't think you're ever going to see either of those things because there's no automatic. I don't think that that they are happy with as far as handling that kind of power. And I don't think there's any way to really do all-wheel drive well for that either. So I'm just keeping my fingers crossed that the Integra and HRV based ADX that's coming, we just saw not too long ago. I hope that gets a Type S version. That's really like my big hope is Integra Type S stays exactly the way it is. Then they copy and paste all that goodness and pop it into an ADX. I think it'd be really cool. And then that could give them the option to maybe open up all-wheel drive if they can have a rear diff that can handle that. Maybe take the one from the TLX Type S. Maybe take that automatic if it bolts up. I don't know if it does, but maybe get a little more space to work with there in those and maybe do something there. But again, I think anyone who wants automatic and wants all-wheel drive just goes and gets a TLX for, very little money extra. So yeah, I think Integra Type S is still damn near perfect, honestly. And Jordan, thank you so much for the super chat. He says, you were right on CRZ. 10 grand is Kelly Blue Book. Wow, even with only 30,000 miles. Okay, so yeah, someone just hoping that they can find a collector to pay the premium on that, I guess. So yeah, I'm glad you looked it up there. Definitely, knowledge is power. So yeah, look up the Kelly Blue Book, look up the comps, see what's out there, and make sure you're not overpaying on anything. Thank you, Jordan, again for the super chat. And let me see here. Joe says, hope everyone's having a good weekend. More so a comment. I saw an older Infiniti SUV, maybe around the F35 2009-ish era, but it was lowered nicely and completely changed my mind on hot hatches from SUVs. Yeah, I always loved those FX35s because I think the FX35 was the one, it was like, this sporty SUV that had rear-wheel drive, had a V8, and then I think it switched to the 350Z's V6. Either way, they always sounded so good. I've never driven or reviewed one of those, and they are super rare. I haven't seen one of those things in years. That's honestly cool you saw one. And yeah, if I ever track one down, absolutely, I want to review it because I'm just personally curious how it drives. But I think it's also just a car kind of forgotten by time that, it's just so awesome. There's so many cool Nissan and Infiniti things in that time period. And I guess it's a shame they couldn't keep that momentum going. And Brian, thanks for the feedback. He says only got the main weekly clip or weekly updates, no clips in his recommendation. So that's great. So happy that it wasn't bothersome to you. Thank you for that feedback, Brian. I really appreciate that. I see Jay Bill is saying, what's the best platform to sell a GD STI? Facebook, eBay, Craigslist. All three of those are not great in my opinion. If it's a nice STI, I'd put it on. Bring a Trailer would be probably the top one, if it's pretty nice. Otherwise, Cars and Bids. I don't love Doug, but that's an enthusiast site, and I think you're going to get a better caliber of buyer than the kind of tire kickers and just time wasters you often have on Facebook and eBay and Craigslist. So yeah, I'd probably just do something like that personally. Stay away from Facebook, eBay, and Craigslist if you can avoid it. Let me see. Sean, thank you so much for the super chat. Your first super chat, I really appreciate it. I don't see any question attached. If you had tried to do it, I know. I see you were asking earlier here. Would you take a Mercedes GLC or an Acura RDX? I'm having trouble picking. Between I see you're the goat. I appreciate that. So as far as those two, again, it depends on a few different things. Personally, if you said, what would I take? I would take the RDX. GLC is very nice. You have the Mercedes clout, but Mercedes, I mean, even Beth leased two C classes. Both of them were kind of glitchy electronically, expensive maintenances, expensive servicing and parts and all that. I mean, you kind of get that with all the luxury brands, but Mercedes especially, and then again, just problematic a little bit more. And I have not heard good things about the new Mercedes from a quality standpoint. I actually have a dealer contact, and the amount of nuts stuff that I've heard from this guy, just crap leaving the factory in such terrible shape, and just again, not everything and not every vehicle, but like some real crazy mess ups that I haven't heard it from, with other dealers. And just, I just don't have a ton of confidence in their build quality. I think they're really expensive when you compare as well. I mean, a lot of the stuff, anytime I'm reviewing a luxury vehicle where Mercedes makes a competitor, Mercedes is usually almost always safely the most expensive vehicle in that segment, and it is almost never worth the extra money. Again, if you're talking maybe used or something and they depreciate like rocks, then and just drop off the face of the earth from a value standpoint, okay, maybe I could see, if you have an extended warranty bundled in with it, there could be some sense made there. But RDX is fantastic. I love RDX. I actually just spent a week with another one, the Refresh 25. That video will also be coming next month. And RDX is just fantastic. Tons of space, huge, cargo area, actually more than GLC, I'd say. Back seat, I'd say, is actually maybe even slightly bigger than GLC. It's just a little bit of a bigger vehicle overall. It drives better. RDX is so fantastic with the handling, with the true torque vectoring all-wheel drive. Now, the big thing about RDX is that touchpad controller thing. I don't know if you've tried that yet. You got to sit in one. I'd go to a dealer and sit in one, play around with it if you can, and see if it's a deal breaker for you. Again, I don't want to spoil the review too much, but since I'm assuming you're shopping for this now, I don't want to make you wait a month if you can't do that. For me, the touchpad, I really complained about it a lot in prior years, especially with CarPlay, because it's the way it's set up. I don't know how familiar you are, but it's differently mapped. So it's this true touch thing. And if you're using it in Acura's native infotainment system, it's fine. It's actually completely fine. I don't have any complaints with it. Like, I think it's completely okay. Obviously, I'd prefer a touchscreen, but it's not bad. And honestly, I was doing some things quicker, I observed, with the touchpad than I would be doing them in a regular touchscreen kind of set up in another system. So it's fine in that. It's just that whenever you go to CarPlay or Android Auto, to highlight an icon, you got to like drag your finger across like a regular mouse pad, but it's not as quick or responsive as a regular mouse pad or trackpad, on a laptop. So it's a little annoying, and depending on the apps you use, like I use Waze oftentimes, and like there's a million different little buttons and icons to press, and it's just like a lot of frustration. Sometimes it just comes down to how heavy of an Apple CarPlay or Android Auto user you are. If you mess with that stuff a lot, it might bother you. Again, that's why it's really, I think important to just try to play around with it if you can, see how it works for you, pair up your phone to it, drive around for a little bit. If it drives you crazy, I'd understand. But I think personally, the RDX is good enough that I would live with that experience. And if I was in that segment shopping, RDX would basically be my pick over everything, I think. I can't think of a single other thing I'd rather have in that segment, especially when you factor in, again, the lower price tag of the RDX compared to most of the others. And yeah, so I love RDX. I think it's fantastic. If you go for the higher versions too, the adaptive dampers are really nicely done. I have a lot of love for RDX, and it is actually in my personal list of vehicles. If I needed, to buy a vehicle again, that was a family vehicle, and I needed to have an SUV. I prefer sedans, but if I had to have an SUV, RDX is really towards the top of the list for me as far as stuff that's a good price, used or new, and is just really good to drive. And everything, all the driver inputs, like the steering is really good. Throttle response is usually pretty good. Brakes feel good. Even just the steering wheel, I don't know, like the 9 and 3 grip is just so good. Like, it's just the little details in that car that really, I think, again, the trackpad is the only thing that annoys me about that car. Otherwise, it's basically perfect in my opinion. I love the RDX. So hopefully that helps you a little bit. I always recommend also test driving both vehicles and, feeling it out for yourself. Just because I like it doesn't mean you will. Everyone likes different things and has different priorities. So, definitely try it on for size and see what you think. But those are my 2 cents. Hopefully that helps you a little bit. And thank you again for the other super chat. Sorry again, that the other one didn't work there. But thank you so much, Sean. Hopefully that helps you a little bit. And let me see if there's any follow-up here before I move on. He's thinking 2019 and 2020 for either car. Okay. Yeah, I mean, so maybe if GLC's, I don't think it's really any cheaper because RDX also depreciates. So Yeah, I still think RDX is the way I would go. He's thinking subcompact SUVs in the 20 to 30 grand price range, and I love the A spec models of 2019 and 2020. Yeah. I mean it's bigger than subcompact, so maybe it'd be a little too big for what you like, because like even GLC is compact. If we're talking subcompact, you're talking like GLA, GLB, Acura would be the new ADX here coming this year. Those are technically subcompact, so but if you're okay with RDX size, absolutely, I'd go for RDX personally. But yeah, thanks again, Sean. And Chad, thank you for a super chat. He says, why do manufacturers set high MSRPs only to offer incentives to lower the price? It puts those who don't research to go used, which doesn't give the manufacturer money. That's a good point. There's a fine art and a science to, how they do that and how they play that. So, one kind of company that did try to do things differently and kind of do things the way you're talking about is Tesla. If you remember, in the past couple of years, Model 3, basically all the Teslas, the pricing was all over the place. If you remember, it was like 1 minute, prices were super high, and then we got to clear out inventory at the end of the year. Let's hurry up and slash the price, and prices went down. And what that did with them, pogoing around with the MSRP on the Teslas is that, I mean, there's a few other reasons why they resale values have been crushed on those things, but that's one of them. And I saw the blowback online when people were like, what the heck? I just spent 50 grand for my Model Y, and now you're giving people the same thing for 43. What gives? I want a refund, this, that, and the other. When you start playing around with that price, that's the advertised price that everyone is seeing and it's being reported on and all that, that's where you get burned. And that hurts those residuals, that hurts that resale value. Versus incentives can hurt resale value, and vehicles that do have high incentives, that does kind of accelerate the depreciation, because you have a car that, Alfa Romeo Giulia is a prime example of this. Sure, they sticker for 50, but no one pays more than 40 or whatever. And so you're starting lower, and then it just keeps on dropping fast from there. And so it kind of throws everything off regardless. But, whenever you're talking about incentives, the nice thing about incentives too is that you can price it differently for regions. So for example, maybe in, Arizona right now, Subaru Crosstreks probably have terrible incentives. Because getting it flipped. In Arizona, they might have more incentives on Crosstreks right now because people probably, have no problems. There's no weather components with that, versus here in Pittsburgh, where people will see snow outside and they say, oh no, I need a Subaru, because that's what everyone thinks in Pittsburgh. There's not going to be very many incentives on Crosstreks, or if there are incentives, they're just merely fuel to the fire of everyone buying them anyway. And so, you're able to custom tailor that pricing per region. And this is why every time you go onto a new car site and you want to go to a configurator site, or you want to go to even like the shopping tools where it says like, what are your local offers? They always want your zip code before they give you a quote for your price. And you can play around with different zip codes and see, if you punch in the, Pittsburgh zip codes, or you punch in the LA zip codes, you could get wildly different incentives. And that's how they custom tailor demand for different regions and different markets. And so, if you don't think to do that, or to, do that kind of analysis, then you're going to say, okay, well, everyone pays MSRP for Crosstreks, I guess I'm just going to pay MSRP. Meanwhile, the guy in Arizona is paying $5,000 under because, they don't sell as well there, that type of thing. It gives them that flexibility. And if you did an MSRP that was $5,000 lower in Arizona, right off the bat on the window sticker, like, you're in Arizona, so you get a cheaper Crosstrek, then you'd have people trying to game the system, and it'd be a whole thing. So I think they kind of have their hands tied a little bit, and also it's, again, a very fine line you got to walk there between trying to not crush your values, not piss off people that already just bought, a month, a year, 2 years ago, whatever the case is. And also, they want to preserve their their profits. And if they, can maybe throw in an incentive for that aggressive shopper, but then for the random person that waltzes in that doesn't do that research, that doesn't care, that doesn't know, whatever the case might be, they waltz in and they say, okay, well, the dealer says this is what I need to pay, so I guess this is what I'll pay. And then, that's all gravy for them, So unfortunately, it is also, putting it on the buyer to make sure they get that good deal when you're talking about incentives versus, again, MSRP is equal access for everybody. So I think that those are the reasons I think why they do that. And again, and that gives them the flexibility that they can always adjust pricing downward with incentives if they need to, if something isn't doing as well as they will, or as they are hoping it will. I mean, great question, Chad. Thanks so much for asking. But I mean, even Tesla, learned this lesson, and now you see less of that pogoing than you did in the past. I mean, they'll sometimes, again, now they're doing incentives. They'll do lease deals. I saw that for Teslas at the end of the year and stuff. So they're trying to do the same thing every other car company has these days. But the days of these pogoing Tesla prices, I don't think we really see as much of that these days. I think that's the reason why. And AGR, thank you so much for the generous super chat as well. Is it, hi Matt, nice to see you live. Hope you three are doing well. I just wanted to say thanks for the honest, personal, knowledgeable reviews. Watching them is a nice getaway from the circus out there. I appreciate that, and I'm happy to be that for those of you on YouTube that are just burned out by all the sensationalized crap that's out there. And thank you for that. That's I appreciate that people do appreciate that, because some days I wonder, I mean, again, I know, the 102 of you that are currently watching this do appreciate that. I'm preaching to the choir here, but, I kind of wonder, is there mass appeal for this? Is there a future for honest, straightforward stuff? And so I'm happy that you appreciate that. And hopefully that word gets out to, more and more people little by little that, are burned out by this stuff, because it doesn't seem like it's getting any better with the clickbait and with just the crap that's out there. And so I really hope that, that does rise above, the crap and kind of cuts through the noise there. And this is why even for my bio, I just changed the bio on the channel, which doesn't really matter. But if you go on the channel page, it says like honest, off the cuff reviews, like no BS, no bias. Like I put that in like the top title. So if you're browsing the channel for the first time on the channel page there, like that is the first thing you read from me, is like no BS, like just putting that out there, which like, no one else really says that kind of stuff. I mean, some people like good reviews or, whatever, but like they don't, they're not as upfront about that, like complete brutal honesty. And so I hope that does stand out, because I think honesty is sorely needed these days. I know it's not sexy. I know it doesn't make for great headlines. It doesn't make for, the most sensationalized videos, but hopefully, again, I'm just trying to provide people with good car advice and a little bit of entertainment, hopefully, to go along with it. But I know that's not a sexy thing, and so I'm happy that it's at least appreciated and helpful, and that's all I'm hoping for. I just hope that, again, the appeal continues to grow for that, even though that's not the thing that's in vogue these days. But maybe the trends will work in my favor someday for that, and people will be tired of that stuff like you are, and I'm happy to see that. So thanks so much, AGR, and happy to see that you agree there, Jordan, too. And JJ, thank you for a super chat as well. It says, did you see that Mustang Spirit of America, $400,000? I didn't hear the price tag. That's crazy, but also nothing about that car really surprises me anymore, because it's so expensive. And the GTD is, I think the GTD version kind of fell through the cracks for some people, because that's been out for a year. They're just starting to, I think, build them here soon. The Spirit America is just, paint and stickers, pretty much for that version in particular. But yeah, it's crazy how expensive those GTDs are. I mean, I get it. It's a full race car Mustang. It's not even a Mustang really underneath. They just fit a race car platform underneath a Mustang, heavily modified Mustang body. And so it's so different, but I still just, I know it's kind of just like a car they need to make also for just the certification process for the race car and stuff, but it's, I don't know how much appeal there is going to be for that. I know, of course, flippers and collectors are going to buy them and they'll be sold out no matter what, but it's one of those, again, unobtainable, just outlandish cars that's just like, oh, that's fun, and then I kind of put it out of my mind because it's just so unrelatable. Um, but yeah, it's see, Austin says Mustang spirit of capitalism. Yeah, I mean, it's a cool tribute, to Craig Breedlove that did all those land speed records, but it's also kind of weird. I mean, again, I'm happy they're giving tribute to a legend, but like the GTD is not about high speed. It's not about setting a kind of record. It's a handling car. It's a race car. I don't know what the top speed is, but it's probably not even going to be 200 miles an hour. I'm sure a Shelby would be a regular Shelby, or like even the old Shelby that one cracked 200 miles per hour. To me, that'd be a better tribute, to a land speed record holder than some circuit vehicle. But hey, that's cool nonetheless. I think Ford's desperate to like not do the same heritage stuff they've done forever, and they're trying to get away from those, which is another reason why I don't think we'll ever see another Bullet or Mach 1 or anything like that. I think they're trying to do new stuff. Even they had an opportunity with EcoBoost, this new EcoBoost RTR that came out this week. That would have been a prime example to bring back SVO and have a new Mustang SVO. If anyone remembers those from the 80s, this would have been perfect to do that with. And instead, they're doing this new RTR thing with Von Gittin Jr., and they're just trying to do this new path forward and not leaning on that old stuff because, again, they're trying to appeal to young buyers. I don't know how many young buyers have 50 grand to spend on a Mustang or more, but that's the market they're aiming for. So, we'll see how it works out for them. But part of me is sad. I'm going to miss the more historical Mustang special editions. And Jordan, thank you for another super chat. He says, do car companies benefit with toy models? That's all licensing deals. So anything that is officially licensed, whether it's models or t-shirts, hats, whatever, like all that stuff, they get a tiny little cut of all that, so yeah, if it's an officially licensed thing, they will get a little, I don't know what the royalty is. They probably make, $1 on each one or something, but they do, get a kickback on all that stuff. Yeah. And Chad, thank you for a super chat as well. He says fake nostalgia like MG. Yeah, I mean, I wish we would get the new MGs here though, because they are pretty cool. Especially that, what is it called? The Cyberster, I think is the Roadster thing. It'd be cool to see that, but yeah, MG, it's a shame. It's not what it once was. And let me see here. Thank you all so much for all the super chats. Getting back to the other member questions here. I'm going to be scrolling a little bit here. Apologies, I'm getting behind a little bit, but I will catch up here quickly. So let me see. Harsha says, my spot of the week was a 2004 Ferrari 360 convertible that recently got painted red. It's a gated manual and a convertible. Nice. That's rare, especially if it's an original manual. I know a lot of people are doing the conversions in those now. But if it's an original, that's a big dollar car because everyone is wanting those manual ones more than the automatics. And so that's nice spot. That's awesome. And he says, came to my local car meet on Friday. That's very cool. They even showed up there too. And Jake says, thoughts on the Mazda CX-50? Been eyeing one for a while. CX-50 is really good. So my biggest complaint with CX-50 over the past few years was that the steering was a little too heavy for a regular crossover. It was like heavier than a lot of sports cars that I've driven, and it was just like ridiculous. So that's been fixed for 25. I'm pretty sure that all of them have been fixed for 25 with the steering. So I would go for 25 or newer if that's going to bother you. Now, if it might not, I would test drive if you're looking for a used one. Test drive one of the earlier ones and see if that's something, that is going to bother you or not. CX-50 is really nice. I think the only problem I have with CX-50 as well is that it's not very good from a space utilization standpoint. It's bigger than CX-5, but all they did was make the nose longer and they made it wider outside. But the cabin, the shell, you basically have the same rear legroom as CX-5. You basically have the same cargo space as CX-5. And CX-5 already wasn't, best in class by any means. It was actually, one of the smaller ones in its segment. And that didn't really improve really with CX-50. They needed to make it bigger. And so it's just, I respect the way they styled it. And again, Mazda often does this where they really focus on the styling component, even if it does come at the expense of, the practicality a little bit. But if, having the best rear seat legroom and cargo space isn't a big concern for you, I think CX-50 is great. I really enjoyed it. I, did a review on the regular one when those first came out. I did a week with video on that as well. And then I also just spent a few days with the new hybrid version. It has the Toyota powertrain. That's also pretty well done. Not perfect, again, you can watch the video if you're curious on the hybrid version. But it is very nice. Like, it looks great. The interior is very beautiful and very luxurious. Definitely one of the most luxurious interiors in that segment. It's just, again, space isn't the best. And for most people, they're buying these vehicles for space. So I think that's the one downfall of CX-50, but otherwise, great vehicle. And let me see. Raphael says Camry TRD 32 grand new, 26 grand is now with 35,000 miles. I've been amazed, and I'm not trading it in. That's awesome. That's probably why I think a lot of people aren't trading them in, and that's probably why they're holding their value too, because there's not a whole lot of inventory out there to sell people, so they charge top dollar for them, and that's great. I'm so glad it's been a good investment for you. And MD Kian says, howdy, Matt. I saw a Sonic Blue Kona N while eating lunch with some friends from a car rally. About scared the piss out of the waiter after I freaked out. That's hilarious. Man, and Sonic Blue, yeah, that's a pretty rare one, right? For that Kona N. I mean, already Kona Ns are so rare, but very nice spot. That's awesome. And glad it excited you, even if it was at the expense of the waiter. And thanks for stopping by, MDK. Cara says, I really enjoyed the weekly update and intentionally watched some of the clips and gave them a like so I could help the algorithm. I appreciate that. Thank you. He says, I usually go to your channel directly and don't rely on the YouTube feed. And that's a good way to make sure you don't miss stuff for sure. Because even the subscriptions feed, isn't always reliable, unfortunately. So, I know a lot of people that don't, they don't think about, me and the channel unless, it's in their sub feed or in their notifications or whatever. Yeah, if you can think of it, yeah, that's always the best way to make sure you don't miss anything for sure. As is, doing the notifications, if you don't mind getting pestered with that stuff. Notifications are great. And it's also something you can, custom tailor it. Like a lot of people have. It's crazy because YouTube will actually show me there's like 40,000 people that signed up to have notifications pushed to their phone the second I upload a video. But out of those 40,000, only 15,000 have their phone set up correctly to actually push through the notifications. So I think a lot of people like click the bell, but then turned off YouTube notifications from like a phone standpoint. So it's like, I think people still misunderstand the bell and how that's supposed to work. Where it's not like giving you a notification in your YouTube app, it's giving you a notification like a push thing, for your phone in general there. So it's always funny to see the giant disconnect there of how people use those notifications. But yeah, thank you so much though I'm glad you like the clips. I'm glad they didn't annoy you or anything. And I appreciate the support there, Cars. Thanks so much. And Vishal says the V6 Camrys hold their value insanely well. My buddy sold his 2018 XSE for 23 grand last year with 42,000 miles. Bought it in 2020 with 22,000 miles for the same price. Well, that also is a result of just inflation. I mean, all the pricing of everything went crazy. Anyone who bought anything in 2020 made out like a bandit. I mean, that goes for houses, that goes for cars. I mean, everything was cheaper back then. So that there's some of that as well, but also for sure V6 Camrys are going to hold their value, I think. So yeah, that's great to see. MD Can says the crackhead just literally hit 40,000 miles as I speak. Wow, you're putting some good miles on it. That's awesome. I'm glad you're driving that thing and enjoying it to the max. That's great to see. And let me see. See, Brian's Video Complex said he saw a Prowler this week. That is a rare vehicle, I think, in general. So that's awesome. Nice spot, Chase. Thanks for using the emoji there. Harsha says, speaking of parts availability, how are people getting parts for 2012 to 2016 Tesla Model S? Technically, the car is the same, but the body panels and the battery packs have drastically changed. How would you get parts for these older EVs? Most car companies do continue to make parts just for the parts chain for even, people get into crashes and need to have their cars fixed. There is factories that continue to make old parts specifically for that reason. Obviously not at massive scale, but they do, every car company has, a parts section that just makes old parts for that reason in particular. But otherwise, yeah, it's just the stuff that's out of production that isn't being supported anymore, or especially brands, again, like we talked about earlier with Packard, that have gone away, where it's like, there is no Packard to build parts anymore, so it's up to the enthusiasts at that point. But at least for most brands, I mean, even some of these brands that are leading into that more, like I think Honda just announced recently they're doing like new parts for like, the first generation SIs and like CRX and all these other super old things. They're starting to like do some new remanufactured parts and stuff. So I think that is, a lot of these companies do want to support all those old things. But especially again, if you're talking still relatively modern stuff where a lot of them are on the road, getting into accidents and all that, you got to have that parts supply still coming in. And Dylan says, with cheaper sedans having a huge rebound, do you think we may see some new wagons here in the States? I mean, maybe. I guess that kind of tracks. I think the appeal though for sedans, the reason why sedans are doing so well is not so much that people love sitting lower or having a smaller vehicle, but it's the fact that it's usually cheaper. You compare, Sentra to Rogue, you compare Impreza to Forester, or even Crosstrek. There's always a price premium to be paid for that higher seating position and a slight bit of extra versatility or whatever. And I think a lot of people, again, if push comes to shove, if they are crunched for money, it's like, what, I can sit lower, I can have a trunk, it's still a bunch of space, and they're just compromising in a way. I think that's really what's driving that. I don't think it's because people are falling in love with sedans again. Maybe they will after they buy them. They're like, hey, this isn't so bad. Why did I bother with those SUVs all these years? There might be some of that, and we might see that long-term people coming back to sedans after, again, getting back into one. So I'm optimistic for that future for sedans. But as far as wagons, I think if people still want that extra versatility, they're probably still just going to go for the crossover, especially since, wagons sometimes get slightly better fuel economy, but no one's going to care about that for the next 4 years from a OEM standpoint. So there's less incentive to bring that over for that reason even. So I think, yeah, Americans are still just going to go for SUVs if they want to have a big hatch. I wish it wasn't that way, but I think that's the way I'm anticipating it going. I could be wrong, could be surprised. But I think, once you're going to that bigger wagon kind of vehicle, there still is kind of that price premium that maybe be a little less than the SUV, but I don't think by a lot. So, and I would think too, since Subaru is such a big wagon player, if they were confident that people, maybe would be wanting to go back to wagons, I think they'd be one of the first to maybe try and offer that. Although these days with their management being, super conservative with, their product choices, maybe not. But, we're seeing the spy shots of the new Outback, for example, that's coming this year. And it looks like it's actually going to go more into SUV territory and not be an lifted, wagon like it has always been, because legacy's dying. And so it doesn't have to be tied to the constraints of legacy anymore. And so this new gen Outback's just going to be bigger, taller and all that. And I think what we can expect is an uglier Hyundai Santa Fe is what it's going to end up being. The spy shots, it looks like they're going straight for new Santa Fe, where it's, maybe still wagon-ish, wagon adjacent, but bigger, bolder, blockier. I would think, I guess it's too late to reverse course for them, for that, but I would think that they would maybe try to bring something around, or even, if they thought wagons were going to do something, bring the WX wagon here. Those enthusiasts would certainly be into the wagon, and they don't even have the guts to do that. Again, Subaru's kind of backwards with their decision making, in my opinion, sometimes. So maybe they're not the company to look to for any kind of wagon hope, but I think we will see the wagons be this niche kind of, kitschy thing with, the M5 Touring, RS6 Avant, things like that will probably continue because it seems like those are pretty good sellers, but I don't think the mainstream masses will go for the wagons. And so, yeah, I'd love to see it though. Just Well, I guess we'll see what happens. But Vishal says it felt good seeing that article of cheap car sales being up. Made me feel good contributing to the Jetta sales with the purchase of mine last year. Yeah, and thank you for contributing. And yeah, Jetta's had a great year, and it deserves to. New Jetta's really nice too, but even the prior gen one is great. And it's funny, I even yeah, I guess I'll do this little tangent now. So I have the new Taos right now as well, in addition to the Rivian. And the Taos has the old infotainment system, just like your Jetta. It doesn't have the new system that everyone hates, or a lot of people hate the new Volkswagen. So they kind of did things I think really well, sticking with that older thing that works fine. But it was like it's so funny how I'm in this fancy $100,000 Rivian, and like for me, like I couldn't even get it to reliably unlock for me with the key card. I now have to pull my phone out, pull up the app, and then hit unlock on my app to get the Rivian to actually open up. And then I get into this little Volkswagen and I just grab the handle, hit the little button, it opens instantly. I sit in there and I instantly have CarPlay connect immediately in this little $30,000 Taos. And this $100,000 Rivian, I can't get CarPlay because Rivian's stubborn, and I can't even get the door handles to work properly. So it's like, I just Jetta, and I mean those cheap cars, Volkswagen does very, very well. Obviously Rivian's a completely different company, but it made me really appreciate like simplicity. Like, let's not reinvent the wheel here, guys. Like, just give me CarPlay and give me easy stuff that works reliably, and that's what that stuff is. And I think a lot of people, that's also part of, I think, what's also driving the cheap car sales is I think a lot of people are burned out with the huge screens. They're burned out with the over complexity, and that's hurting a lot of the reliability ratings for a lot of these cars. The more high tech they are, the more they're going to have glitches, the more they're going to be over engineered and have things down the road that go wrong. And I think people see, hey, look, this is a cheap, basic little car. This is all I need. This is all I want now. And it fits better with my budget. Why not go for this? I think the only thing that's kind of would go against that is, the trouble of just everyone else buying giant pickup trucks. And so you have this giant disparity of, these gigantic monster trucks rolling around next to these small little cars. But I think for people who, again, that doesn't make them uncomfortable, absolutely go for the cheap car. And I think a lot of people are kind of catching on. And I mean, I've been saying for the past couple of years, like, if people are stressed out about inflation, why are you buying $50,000 cars? And finally people are like, we're not buying $50,000 cars anymore. I'm like, I'm so glad that those dots were finally connected. And we are starting to see, car buyers use some common sense, I think, and bringing some sense back to the market here instead of just blindly opening their wallets for, whatever's on the lot there. Yeah, great question there about that. And comment. Let me see here. So Harsha says, I remember back in 2014 when we bought our Sienna, we went for an LE. The L model back then didn't have tinted windows, no power sliding doors, no center console, no Bluetooth. That's basic. Yeah, but I think that is entirely workable. I mean, I think Bluetooth these days you would have to probably have, but everything else there, I think you could completely do on the brand new Sienna. Get rid of the power sliding doors. Get rid of the tinted windows and get rid of, any kind of extra crap in the center console. I mean, maybe the data suggests otherwise. Again, I'm not going to pretend like I, know it all and have all the answers, but I can't imagine they get burned offering a decontented vehicle that much, I mean, maybe they're getting a little bit of a better profit bundling in all this extra crap for people who don't want it, and maybe people will keep paying it. But again, I think maybe they could really supercharge sales with these cheaper models if they just had the bravery to do it, and you make up the profits with volume instead of with just trying to squeeze every penny you can out of every single sale. I mean, that's like, even whenever we bought our Mach-E in 2022, back in 2022 when EVs were super hot, no one was doing MSRP on a Mach-E. We got ours for MSRP. Everyone else wanted 5 to 10 grand over. And I asked the dealer, I told him it's really refreshing that I talked to the owner of the dealer. I said, it's really refreshing that you're not doing markups when everyone else is. And he's like, you know what? He's like, I'm making plenty of money. And he's like, I'm doing way more volume than most of those people. And as a result, I'm making more money. And Ford likes me better because I'm moving more metal for them. And it's just a win-win-win. And he's like, I don't need to squeeze every last penny out of every car. I just move them through quick and cheaply, and and it works. It really, again, I'm no financial wizard when it comes to supply chain for cars and stuff, but I would hope that companies could see the volume increase and say, okay, we can still make good money with volume instead of with try to maximize profit on every single vehicle. But anyway, we will see how the trends change going forward here. And let me see. Sorry, I missed all these other super chats and all this. So Jordan, thank you for a super chat. He says we watch your live on TV and watch comment on our phones, 3 different devices. Does that benefit your channel views / algorithm? The only thing that benefits is it sends a very clear message to YouTube that you like the channel. And so especially for people, sometimes I get comments from people that say your stuff's never recommended to me anymore. And usually, I mean, maybe there's a little glitch or something in this. I mean, I wouldn't put it past YouTube to have glitches like this. But typically, if you're not seeing my stuff in the recommendations, then you most likely did something to send a signal to them that you don't want to see those recommendations anymore. Whether it's the fact that you just didn't click on any of the recommended stuff, or you dislike something at some point in the in the past, or you unsubscribed or whatever. Some of those types of things can sometimes change that. But yeah, if you're like annoyed that you're not getting my stuff in the recommendations, absolutely, like you gotta reward that algorithm with like, yes, this is what I want to see, and really be cognizant of that every click sends a message to the algorithm for you and your algorithm. It's more so, I mean, because YouTube keeps always telling us, and I do kind of believe it to a certain extent, that for every time you talk about the algorithm, swap the word algorithm for viewer. And instead of saying, how do I optimize for the algorithm? How do I optimize for the viewer? How do I optimize for what you want to see? If you are following the audience, the algorithm will follow that. And that's kind of, the bottom line. And that's why I used to blame the algorithm. It used to be this like boogeyman in the closet you can always blame. But the more and more that I realize, there is some algorithm stuff that's kind of weird. And I still think there might be a little bit of, wonkiness as far as, is it totally fair? Is it totally rational? Probably not. But typically I've found that is mostly true. And so if I'm doing stuff that you enjoy and you watch and you click on it, then, it should all continue to keep pushing you that stuff. And then it's just a matter of, again, that snowballing and, you sending that signal and someone else sending that signal. I think the biggest thing as far as the algorithm to help other people find the channel is obviously sharing the videos. But beyond that, I don't know how many of you guys get the little surveys from YouTube, but they put a ton of weight into those little surveys. If you ever see the little like pop-up things like, how satisfied were you with this video? Those are like the golden ticket as far as helping a channel or hurting a channel if you don't like it. But like if you fill out that little survey and you say, I loved this, and that really adds, from what I've read, more weight for them to be like, okay, well, like this person not only likes this video or likes this channel enough to watch the videos and like and subscribe and comment or whatever, but they actually did a little, review thing. Whenever we asked them what they thought of it, they were, willing to say, this channel's great, I love this or whatever. Then that, I think kind of gives them a little bit more incentive to push that. And likewise, again, if you say, I was not happy with this video, it did not live up to my expectations, I was disappointed, then that kind of buries it. And especially that part of the signal, they're very interested in, because if they get reports that, a video is just clickbait, it isn't living up to what their expectations were in the thumbnail or the title, then they're going to squash that video quick, because then they're going to say, okay, this seems like it's hurting the satisfaction of the viewer. And that's all. YouTube wants you to just stay here as long as you possibly can. And viewer satisfaction is key. That's why with the algorithm, it used to be like, they want you to like, they want you to subscribe, they want you to comment. And those things still help a little bit. But really, like what I've been hearing from all the YouTube experts is get people to watch another video. That's the golden ticket right now. If you can get someone to click onto an end card or click onto a recommendation of another one of your videos, and you can keep them engaged on the platform, obviously this is then gets into a moral gray area of like, obviously you don't want to like have people be sitting on YouTube and wasting hours of their life. So it's obviously, something that comes down to everyone's own time and free time that they have. But like for YouTube, it's like, if you are satisfied, then you will keep watching. And to them, satisfaction and watch time are the same. So like, that's really the bottom line is if you watch every video all the way through, they think, man, this video must have been the greatest video ever. And that's the way to send that signal, is watch it all the way through. And then, if the people keep watching another one, and those people who like chain watch stuff, I sometimes get people that like comment on like 4 videos in a row. And like my comments, it's like this video, all from the same person. It's like that person's having a binge session on the channel and that kind of stuff. Again, I'm not recommending anyone do that, because that's a waste of time for probably most people. But for people who do that, that's the way to like supercharge these channels and send that kind of a message. And that's why I've really been focusing on end cards this year. I'm going to really be saying, so here's what I think about the RDX. If you're curious about the competitors of the RDX, here's my GLC video. Here's this video. And, keep people engaged, because that is apparently the key, at least for right now with the algorithm, to succeed, is to keep people engaged with watching another video. Obviously, again, I have mixed feelings about social media. Obviously, I make my entire career off of it, my livelihood. But there's days where I'm like, man, if I could just delete all social media and not miss this connection, it'd be something like there's a lot of it that is absolutely toxic and can be addictive and destructive in a lot of ways as well. So like, again, I'm not recommending anyone binge watch YouTube, but, if you are shopping for a car, or you are bored and, what you need to fill some time, that's the way, the algorithm really sees, that message sent the most. So there's a little download on the algorithm for 2025 here for anyone who's curious. Hopefully I'm not boring too many of you with that. But JJ, thank you for a super chat as well. I appreciate the race car emoji there. And thanks so much again for the support, JJ. And Chad, thank you for a super chat. He says, do you think the luxury vans will ever catch on here? They offer so much more. 3-row SUVs do not compare, and they're almost never off-road. I totally agree. I think as far as those vans, we have seen, luxury pickup trucks kind of take off more than, companies expected in the past, 5 or 10 years. So maybe vans could be a potential untapped market of people who maybe are wanting that. I think I'd have to know the data from car companies as far as what the take rate is for their loaded versions of their vans. I think the thing with vans, with SUVs, the loaded trims make more sense, because SUVs are already kind of still a luxury item in and of themselves. And then especially the larger ones, and the loaded version of those, you're kind of buying into the like knowingly ignoring the fact that if you want the most utilitarian thing, a van is the best thing. But you are saying, I'm paying a premium to not be in a minivan, to not have that stigma, which I think is so silly anyway. But a lot of people, it is a powerful thing. Like, oh, I can't be seen in a minivan. So they pay a premium for that SUV. So if you're open to paying a premium, you're already in that premium mindset. And that's why I think the car companies can get away with having a premium SUV and premium features on regular brand, non-luxury SUVs and stuff like that. I think a minivan buyer is more pragmatic. They're more practical. They're just, trying to serve a purpose. Sure, there are the loaded minivan buyers out there. There's, plenty of them. But I think it's mostly a different mindset for people. There probably are some people that say, yeah, I can get a loaded Sienna for almost 60, and I wish there was something I could buy for 70 because I got 100 grand to spend or whatever. But, again, I think you're just in a different mindset for that buyer typically, and there's just probably less people that fit that Venn diagram slice of like open to a minivan and also in a premium, I want to spend a bunch of money kind of mindset. And so I think that's kind of why they've tested the waters. And you have seen car companies kind of push up little by little. We used to have just limited versions of these vans. And now, like, you look at Sienna, you have limited, and then you have platinum now. I think there's another one too. And they've built on this. So they are, kind of encroaching little by little and taking those baby steps to say, how much more can we get? How much more can we get? What more can we add? What more can we do? Chrysler also, same deal. There was like limited for the Pacifica, I believe, and then now it's Pinnacle, and now it's like, oh, what if we put little pillows in the back seat, and what if we, do double screens instead of one entertainment screen, and what if we do this and that, and trying to slowly work their way up to that without going full blown like, hey, let's make a Lexus Sienna. I think they might worry that's a bridge too far. Maybe it's not. I think again they're trying to test the waters with that stuff, and I think like I would probably not be surprised if, like, for example, we see a Sienna Capstone someday. I know that's mostly a truck thing right now, with Tundra and Sequoia, but maybe that's something they kind of try, something like that, and again try and inch up a little more. I'm like, okay, well, what if we charge you 70 or 65 instead of 60, and give you some nicer leather and real wood or whatever, and do those little things. And I think that's kind of, the baby steps they'll take instead of going full blown. But I mean, yeah, those luxury vans are popular in China. They're popular in Japan, places like that. I just think, unfortunately, the stigma with American buyers is different. And so I think minivans still are always going to kind of be held back a little bit by that. Maybe not in the future. We'll see how trends change. But yeah, that's kind of the way I see it right now. Another great question. Thanks so much, Chad. And Karis, thanks so much for being a member for 7 months now. He says, with low-cost vehicles becoming so popular, what is your wild guess for which manufacturers will bring the next low-cost vehicles to the USA? I guess you're saying as far as like new companies that aren't currently competing in that space. It's really going to come down to what the laws are like this year. Because obviously the top one is going to be the Chinese vehicles if they are allowed to come in, which I don't think they will be. But we'll see again how things play out with the Mexican tariffs and with the Canadian tariffs, and how things all play out with that. Because I think the Chinese are still open to building factories in Mexico and stuff. Excuse me, if they can get around the tariffs a little bit. So we'll see how that plays out, but that's the one that's really knocking at the door, like desperately trying to, break into the States with low cost vehicles. I think the other one on my radar still a little bit is VinFast. I know, who knows if they'll even be here by this time next year, but they do a bunch of money bankrolling them. And I think they're on a slightly firmer footing than Fisker and some of these other companies. And VinFast has that VF3 that they had shown to dealers and said, hey, look, this little electric thing has 150 miles of range or whatever, but if we only charge like 20 grand for it, would you be interested? And they're like, yes, give us that thing. Give us all of those things. That's what we want. It looks like a little Suzuki Jimny, which everyone's been wanting here in the States anyway, but a Suzuki Jimny looking thing for 20 grand with, the same range as like a Fiat 500e or something, I think could be a huge hit. Because you look at 500e, for example, that's 35 grand for the cheapest version, basically. But if you're talking 20 grand, then a lot of more people are going to be open to that range limitation and be open to that smaller vehicle and even be open to an unknown brand. If it's 20 grand for a new EV that has all the creature comforts, sure, you might still get some people that say, oh, I'm not getting that. I'm going to get myself a Nissan Versa, and that's fine. But I think you'll get a lot of people that say, sweet, no more oil changes, no more pumping gas in the freezing cold. Sign me up. And so I think that could be a big one if they can actually capitalize and execute that well. That's the other one that really pops into my brain. Outside of those two, I can't think of any other companies that are already established here. Maybe we could see Chevy. Chevy has said they do have a lot of passion for the low cost stuff. That's why we see again Trax and others. But they said they want to do a Bolt, or they're doing a Bolt. It's coming out this year supposedly. I don't know when, but new Bolt supposed to be cheaper than Equinox EV, which already again going to be starting at 35 grand for these base ones. We're going to hopefully be under 30 for Bolt. And that's, I don't know if that's considered low cost, to everyone, but that is, like I've said, 30 is the new 20 as far as pricing for cars. And so I think that, could be a nice, really affordable thing, especially again, if tax credits go away here, in a week or so. then having something that's actually priced under 30 without incentives is going to be really important. So I think they're working really hard on that. Ford has also said they have a skunk works in California working on some $25,000 EV. So I think this is something everyone's really working hard on, and they're really trying to get to that point. And I think that we'll see how the next few years go. But I think that even if the EV switchover is slowed down by the policies of the next 4 years, I think the general consensus globally is that this is still the way that things are naturally going to evolve towards. And with battery costs dropping so fast, and the technology improving so quickly, and the charging stations getting so much more widespread really quickly. I think they added something like 30,000 new fast chargers in 2024. So they're going up really quickly. Again, that could slow down in the next 4 years, but they still have plans to put these things in regardless of whether there's incentives or not. And so I really think that's what we're going to see, is just more and more of affordable, low cost EVs that do cost the same as the gas vehicles and don't have any kind of price premium. So I think that's really the next thing. But I don't see any of the Japanese companies bringing in any of their K cars or any of the other fun ideas we could have for any kind of low cost stuff. I don't think we're going to see any of that. I wish we would, but I think that's really about the most that I can expect. There might be something I'm missing or not thinking of, but I can't think of any other stuff. Maybe if Chevy wants, I know the Malibu's going away so that they can build Bolts, but maybe Chevy reconsiders getting rid of the sedans, and maybe they bring in something gas powered, some small little Cruise or something like that from, again, another market. Maybe pull something like that. But I really feel like they're still forging ahead, and they want to do just Bolt and Equinox EV for people who used to be Chevy Cruise buyers or Chevy Malibu buyers. I think that's kind of the kind of stuff they're suggesting for those people these days. And I don't think they're going to change from that. But anyway, yeah, that's my best guess there. But thanks so much, Cars, for being a member for 7 months now. And Jordan says YouTube is starting to push the Autoline network. Thank you again, Jordan, for the super chat. I haven't seen any of the Autoline stuff myself in a while. Maybe they have changed their tactics, but they used to be pretty straightforward, level-headed car news. Maybe that's not the case anymore. But they used to do some pretty good interviews and stuff in the past. And Jordan, thank you also for another super chat. He says, we watch the full weekly updates in the mini series updates. If we fast forward and does that help or hurt? It's all about view duration. So, for the videos, it's, typically if you fast forward, you skip through a video. Again, if you don't have the time for it, or you're, I don't expect anyone to watch anything they don't want to watch. But typically, and even like Chris Fix says this, watch the video the whole way through if you want to help the video succeed. So fast forwarding would technically hurt it. If, I'm obviously any watch is better than no watch at all. But, if you have a choice between fast forwarding or not fast forwarding is the more beneficial thing. But again, your time is valuable. Don't waste time, to help the videos. It really is about the mass appeal, and that's on me to try and figure out, how to branch out and do that mass appeal without, trying to find a polite way to say this without completely selling myself out, to be something I'm not. But I really appreciate the interest there, Jordan. Thank you so much for the support again. Hyper Shadow, thanks so much for being a member for 6 months now. He says, I made it here late again. Social media equals sucky cars equals not sucky. Matthias Maran Elias equals YouTube car channel goat. Me equals hoping on N64 nights one day. Yeah, I do want to stream some video games here at some point. I have been thinking, I love the live chats and the Q&As. I don't know how you guys feel. I'm sure some of you would probably like a little bit of variety with the lives and maybe not just always Q&As. I don't know. I know we've been doing Q&As. We have almost 100 of these we've been doing consistently pretty much every week. And I see the love there, so thank you for the little emojis. But, part of me wonders if a little bit of variety, would maybe be refreshing if it's like, we do every other week for Q&As and the other weeks are gaming or, again, I do want to still someday do live junkyard walks and stuff like that, just kind of different things maybe. So it's not always just Q&A. Obviously we have no shortage of questions and I'm always happy to answer questions. So, but I just, from a viewer standpoint, again, trying to put myself in your guys' shoes, I'm like, is this keeping it fresh enough? Is this keeping it, engaging enough? And I want to make sure that it's, something you guys don't get bored with. So, absolutely, I want to try and incorporate some gaming here this year. I don't have any N64 racing games. I can always buy some N64 racing games, but yeah, I think definitely the PlayStation stuff. I got, I really want to fire up my old Gran Turismo 2 save game, and because I haven't cracked that open in probably 25 years. So that would be fun to maybe closer. Yeah, no, probably 25 years. So that's probably it'd be really, really fun to look back on that. So that could be fun, especially if it's like my first reaction, like never seeing this stuff and not remembering very much of it and pulling up, my old garage and like the mods I did and stuff. Could be fun. So yeah, and I actually my brother-in-law does do some like gaming stuff a little bit. So he said he'd be happy to help me like kind of do a setup because I have no clue how to set all that stuff up to, have you guys see what I'm playing and all that without like pointing the camera at a TV, which obviously is not the way it's done these days. So I gotta figure it out, and he'll help me out with that. But I want to do that this year for sure. I think once, I gotta just get to a point where I'm less busy, so I have more time to kind of tinker and play around with stuff a little bit. But I want to get to that at some point. And thank you so much, Hyper Shadow, for being a member for 6 months now. And I see we're at 2 hours, so I will. The last couple of super chats here, try and hit a few more member questions. I apologize, I got behind on those. But I'm going to hit a few more of those here and probably wrap up here in the next 10 minutes or so if we can. Jordan, thank you for a super chat. He says, Honda Zero Saloon is an updated HPX concept. Honestly, I don't even remember what the HPX concept looks like, so I can't even weigh in on that. I love the Zero Saloon, though. That thing is super sweet. Yeah, I kind of wish, for our family vehicle, because our Mach-E is going to be up for, or we're going to be done with it in the middle of 2026. So I'm starting to keep my eye out for like, stuff that they're talking about is coming in 2026 to be like, okay, maybe this is something I'd be interested in, putting in a pre-order for or something like that, or at least registering my interest or putting a deposit on something. And we are still firmly in the SUV camp. I think Beth really still likes having, that extra practicality for sure. And I think it makes sense, with a kid too. But if I could convince her to get back into a sedan, I think that's Zero Saloon. I love it. I actually showed it to her just to see what she thought about the SUV version the other day, and she's not into either of them, but like the sedan, she was like, wow, that's like really crazy. I'm like, yeah, I think it's great though. I love it. I don't think she was super into it, but I do love the Zero Saloon personally. TFI, thanks so much for being a member for 4 months now. He says, longtime listener, first time caller. I heard diesels make more torque than gas, so I put diesel in my Civic, but now it won't start. Am I cooked? You are cooked. Yes. That's a good one. It's so funny how so many cars still have like a label. It's like, do not put diesel in this. Because I guess there used to be some confusion at one point where people just don't know the difference. But yeah, it's such a shame diesel was kind of killed off here in the States, especially because diesel had so much promise. The shame. But Jordan, thank you for another super chat. He says, thoughts on possible call-ins from members. There is a way I can I think I have to in the beginning of the live stream, I have to I can add people at the start to have call-ins. If I want to do this like a collab or something, I definitely could. As far as from members, I could as well. It's just one of those things where, yeah, I mean, I think if I'm doing call-ins from members, I think that'd be better done as a members only kind of live stream kind of thing, where it's just all members. Because that way, I don't have to worry about falling behind on questions or anything. If it's just us chatting, then that could be, something that's, a little bit easier to do in that kind of a arena versus a public live stream. But yeah, maybe like a exclusive like members only thing or something could be a fun extra perk down the road. Um, but yeah, and like maybe a rotation of people calling in or something possibly could be fun. Yeah, I'll think about that some more and try and come up with a way that could work because I think we have like 150 some odd members, more after tonight thanks to all the generous gifting. But so obviously can't have everybody, calling in at the same time, so we'd have to find a way to do that equitably. But yeah, that could be a fun idea for sure. You have to think about that some more. Thanks for the idea, Jordan. And let me see here. So I'm going to the last couple of member questions here. I apologize if I didn't get to your member question. Like always, if you have a burning question that you would like answered, member, non-member, doesn't matter. There's all the contact info in the description as well. I might not answer immediately. It might take me a day or two to answer, but feel free to send me an email, send me a Facebook message, Instagram DM, whatever. I try and get to that stuff as best I can. And, I'm always here to help people find a car they'll love and answer any car questions or any questions in general. So definitely feel free to reach out. I don't want to let anyone down if they're hoping, for an answer tonight and didn't get one. Because I know, again, there's just a lot that I didn't get to here in the 2 hours. It always flies by. But Joe says, real quick, I thought the Kia K5 GT, the one with the higher power, 290 horsepower, 310 pound-feet of torque, was with the all-wheel drive, but sadly it's not. Do you think that car will ever be available with those specs in all-wheel drive? Had me excited. No, I don't think so. I mean, technically they could. Typically, though, if you want that, you have to go up to the Genesis models, sadly. That's been reserved for the luxury stuff. Excuse me, that may trickle down someday. But yeah, if you watch my K5 GT review or the Sonata N-Line, you will see they are hilarious because they're just burn out everywhere. It just wants to just shred those tires. And you got to have a healthy tire budget if you get one of those two cars because there's also no limited slip diff in the front. So it's also this traction control kind of limits you from doing one wheel peels everywhere, but it's like very messy power delivery. It's fun. And again, it's hilarious. I had a bunch of laughs in both the K5 GT and the Sonata N-Line. Check those videos out if you want to see me having a good time, just being silly. It's fun for that. If it's a silly laugh is what you want. I like to think of the K5 GT and the Sonata N-Line as like the front wheel drive Dodge Chargers, especially the V8 Chargers, where those again just spin the wheels at the drop of a hat. Same thing with K5 and Sonata. If you love doing burnouts everywhere you go, those are the cars for you. They're fantastic in that regard. Everything else, great cars, but just not very good from a power delivery standpoint if you're actually going for maximum velocity there. But yeah, I don't think they'll ever go to all-wheel drive. I'd like to see it, but Sonata is just started offering all-wheel drive, so is K5. Actually, I think does Sonata do it? I can't remember. I know K5 has it for sure. I think Sonata, they just started offering it, if I remember correctly. Maybe I'm misremembering, but regardless, it's very limited in those vehicles, and I think it's just, again, trying to fill the niche to compete against all-wheel drive Camry and stuff like that. So I don't think you're gonna have any luck there, but maybe someday we'll see. And let me see. TFI says, I grew up on Cruising USA on N64 and NFS 3 Hot Pursuit on PC. Nice. I never did PC gaming really too much, aside from like The Sims and a few others like that. But Need for Speed, yeah, for me, it was PlayStation, and I loved playing Need for Speed. It was so fun. But let me see. Hyper Shadow says, just FYI, I watched through all your videos and I'm glad to help your channel, but I genuinely do it because I've always liked your videos and found them informative. You've always done a good job. Well, I really appreciate that. Again, thank you guys so much. It really means a lot. But yeah, it's getting harder and harder to get views every day. And so, that's why I was so happy to see the weekly update do well this week. I'm glad those clips are doing well. Especially because, I always been rooting for the weekly updates. I want them to stick around myself. I know so many of you really do love those, especially I know car reviews, again, it's whatever, people watch the ones they're interested in, and it's always going to be somewhat limited appeal for those, but the weekly updates, I'm so happy that so many enthusiasts really enjoy those, even if the car news isn't super fun every week, even if it's depressing, seeing fun stuff go away or seeing cars come out that you're not interested in. But for me, it's still just a fascinating thing of like, what is this company doing next? What is the next new car coming out? What's the new surprise? What's the new crazy thing? I think the Honda Saloon and the SUV this week were one of those fun surprises where I was like, holy crap, they actually built a concept car. It's kind of fun when that happens. It's rare when that happens. When it does, it's like, wow, like this is kind of one of those reasons I'm happy to follow car news, because it's like, you sometimes get fun surprises like that where it's like, cool, they actually built the concept car. This is really fun to see, and seeing just these bold, daring ideas and crazy things, and also just being in the know and being like, oh yeah, well, I see you bought that car. There's a new one coming in 6 months, whatever, things like that, or just making sure you don't make that same mistake yourself. If you're someone who likes having the newest thing, there's just some of those types of things that I do enjoy with the updates. So I hope you guys enjoy them as well. And thanks so much. He says, keep the weekly updates at least 40 minutes. Jordan says, it's all, I'm at the mercy of what news comes out that week. That's always the toughest thing about those updates is if there's no exciting stuff to put in the headline, it's probably not going to be a good video from a view standpoint, and that's just, I have my hands tied because I'm not going to lie and pretend, the STI is coming back every week or the MR2 is revealed when it's actually not. I can only do so much, so that's just one of those things. It's just all comes down to the luck of the news cycle there. But Jordan, thank you for, I'm assuming the final super chat of the night here. He says, Matt, lives are going to have to be 3 hours in 2025. Yeah. I'm always happy to chat with you guys and happy to see that, it hasn't dropped off too much here, even towards the end, but we will wrap up here, but thank you all so much. Again, apologies to those of you I didn't answer, didn't have the chance to get to here in the 2 hours, but again, feel free to send me a message. Feel free to come back. I also want to briefly say next week, I'm not entirely sure I will be doing a live stream, just due to some other commitments that I have in the evenings on the weekend here this next weekend. I'm not totally sure. I may try and do a Friday night live stream this Friday. I know that might mess with some people's viewing schedules since they usually just probably watch the weekly updates on Friday nights. I may do Friday live. I just have to see. So stay tuned, for that, or just, I'll notify you guys if I do decide to do that. I may just end up skipping next week as well, though, and I'll be back the following week for sure. But yeah, so anyone who had a question, if it's not a burning question, save it for the next time. I'll be more than happy to answer it. Hopefully we'll get to it in a future live stream. But anyway, thank you all very much for watching. Have a great week, everyone. Stay safe, those of you again in LA and elsewhere. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Stay tuned for some more good car stuff this week. But take care, and thanks again for watching.